going through to look for a new job, interviews with different restaurants, and it's quite hard when you go there and you say, you need to transfer my visa for me to start. So that was always a tough topic because of the current situation, Nobody had the money to spend. I think it was about $5,000 to transfer a 457. Yeah, it was tricky. I tried every day. I was on calls, I was going in for interviews, trying to do trials, and as good as they went, it all came down to, sorry, we can't take on your visa right now.
This week on Dirty Linen, we are talking about staffing. When I started the podcast some months ago, I don't know, was it a month ago? Was it last week? Was it 5 years ago? I really don't understand how time works in 2020. But anyway, when I started the podcast, the aim was to discuss issues in hospitality and stick to a topic for a week. As it turned out, the Melbourne lockdown really ran away with the show, and it just seemed important to talk to people about what was going on. It's now really thrilling to feel things just switch up a little bit. Melbourne is reopening. We're feeling a little bit more optimistic. There are still lots of issues to work through, and things are going to be tough for a long time. But it does feel like this podcast can lean back into issues, and something that's coming up for so many people is staffing. I want to tackle this issue from lots of different directions. Hopefully you've heard me chat to Chantal de Fraga, who owns 3 pubs and is finding it super hard to find staff to help her open them as much as she wants to. Today, I am chatting to someone who's got a very different perspective on the situation. His name is Aidan Robinson. He is a pastry chef, and he was working at Dinner by Heston when it closed. He has battled his way through the pandemic, and I'm really thrilled to have him on the show today at a time where things are looking a little bit more promising. Welcome, Aidan. It's so lovely to have you on the show.
Hi, Dani. Yep, thank you so much for having me.
I'm really thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to you. We've been in touch a little bit through the pandemic, and I was just skimming back through our messages, and it's really been a bit of a roller coaster, hasn't it?
Sure has.
Set the scene for us. You were working at Dinner by Heston, which unfortunately closed, and I guess things must have been a little bit rocky there for a while. But set the scene for us. Tell us when you arrived in Australia, what circumstances you arrived under, and let us know what it was like to be at Dinner by Heston.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, originally from Manchester, so English guy, moved to Australia in 2017 of June, and that was to work at Dinner by Heston. I worked for them for 4 years in London, in Knightsbridge, and then actually did end up leaving London Dinner because I was planning to move to Copenhagen, just through holidays and having a few friends there, and just loving the hospitality scene there was incredible. I think I went 4 times in 1 year, so after 4 years at Dinner in London, I was like, it's time for a change. So that was the plan, and then I was messaged by Ashley Palmer-Watts, who was the chef director, executive chef of the entire group of Fat Duck and Dinner by Heston, and obviously eventually moved here to Melbourne instead of going to Copenhagen.
So you were brought out here as a sponsored worker, weren't you?
So I was brought out here on a working holiday visa with the intentions of being sponsored as soon as I arrived, which was the case. But as we all know with these visas, it takes a very long time to be approved. I think I got my sponsorship approved a year later. So that was in 2018 when that would have been approved.
Okay. And what was it like when you arrived? Set the scene for us. What was it like to be at Dinner by Heston in Melbourne? How did it compare to the Knightsbridge one?
Well, obviously being in London, I was like, oh, fantastic. Grass is much greener here. I looked on the maps, where I'd be working just by the Yarra River. I was like, oh, wow, that's going to be fantastic. Compared to living in London in a tiny apartment, I thought, this is going to be great. And it was. I'm still in love with Melbourne to this day, And Dinner was a very good opportunity to come and move here. I do have family here in Sydney and Melbourne, so that also helped settle me in the first few months of moving here, because it was quite a big move.
Yeah, it's the other side of the world, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Dinner was very good stepping stones, and I was there till the closure, which is unfortunate, but learnt a lot. loved it. Obviously, when I moved here, I also knew a few people that was already working at the restaurant that I'd worked with prior in London. So that was also a very big help in settling into this new lifestyle.
Yeah. It, could could you feel it as as a staff member that the restaurant was on shaky ground?
Well, when I first moved there, it was fine. It was only the end of 2019 that we started, having to change. We changed from, we just used to be a full a la carte restaurant that changed to doing tasting menus to try and change the working hours and things like that, which was working. But yeah, we wasn't really aware of, obviously, what was happening. So it was unfortunate.
So was it a shock to you when it was like, oh, guys, like this is all we're going to be winding up?
Absolutely. And it wasn't even much of notice, to be honest. We got a week's notice. Our last day was on Valentine's Day. We thought we was doing all the right things to stay open and, keep moving forward. And then, yeah, really hit us hard. It definitely hit me hard.
You're so vulnerable, aren't you? I mean, you've moved your life here. You've you're on a certain visa class, which means that you're tied as a sponsored worker. You're tied to that employer. You had a week's notice. I mean, you really must have felt stranded.
Absolutely. It was very hard. And if I didn't have my family and my partner here, then God knows what I would have done. I probably would have had to go home.
At that time, like, yeah, middle of Feb, I mean, we'd heard of the pandemic. It hadn't really hit here, but yeah,
I feel like I've been in lockdown since Valentine's Day, personally.
sure, absolutely.
Because after that closing, I was pretty much on my own. There was no support about any visa, support, what I needed to do. And obviously moving here as well, I've never had to have a visa before. So also that is a big stress in itself because I had no idea, how hard or how expensive it all is. And to be honest, if I knew the stress that I would have gone through, I probably would have stayed in London at the time. But obviously now I'm here and everything's happening and, it's amazing now. Well, not amazing with what's going on right now, but you know what I mean, right?
That really surprises
Like
me.
a good opportunity.
Yeah, well, I mean, Crown, like Dinner by Heston was an in-house restaurant. Like, Crown was heavily involved in bringing the restaurant here in the first place. I'm really quite shocked to know that they just like it was just like, okay, see you guys, we're closing the doors. That's it. Good luck. Or, well, perhaps not even good luck. It was just like, sorry, you don't have a job anymore.
That's honestly how it was. And we're still in touch with the liquidators to try and get stuff that's owed to us. So it's a very sticky situation, unfortunately, but obviously that was in February, and then we've had COVID since then, so things got a lot more worse. But I've tried to forget about it and move on, and, that's what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, but you still owed your entitlements.
Yes. That's nothing to do with the back pay of overtime. This is my annual leave, my time in lieu. I worked for the company for 6 years. Yes. But because I'm on a visa, because I'm on a skilled visa and I'm not a citizen or a PR, I'm not entitled to any of those requirements.
Uh, I'm not sure about that. I think you are entitled. You've been employed here. Like, I think you are entitled. I mean, you're employed by the Australian arm of the company, right? You're here under Australian conditions. You're definitely entitled to those things. We can take this offline and I can put you in touch with a lawyer, Aidan, because that's outrageous. You're definitely entitled to that. And I'm really shocked. And I'm really shocked that Crown is now reopening its restaurants. And I mean, were you employed by Crown or by Dinner by Heston?
By Crown, I believe. Again, that's what's just so complicated. Like you try and find out all this information and then you just get stuck at a brick wall because no one will tell you anything or there's no support. So yeah, it was a very hard time.
That is absolute crap. I haven't sworn on this podcast yet, but I'm on the verge of it.
At least give me my annual leave.
I cannot believe that you've been here. Yeah, no job, here in a pandemic, not entitled to any government support, and they're holding out on your annual leave. That's disgusting.
It is, and I was very angry.
Oh, I'm really angry too. All right, deep breath.
But dinner was amazing. Beautiful restaurant. I know, deep breath indeed. Just feels so weird talking about it all again, because obviously I've just swept it under under the carpet and moved on with my life, you know.
But you've got to imagine that that's what people are counting on, that you put it in the too hard basket, you feel like you don't have full rights as a non-citizen here, and that you're just in a position where, what are you going to do? You've got to just put one foot in front of the other and I guess move on. But that is really, really not okay. I'm pretty grossed out by that.
And it wasn't just me in that situation either, you know. Lots of friends and lots of colleagues were in my same position, and not a lot of them are here now, you know. A lot of them had to go home. That was a hard time for us all, you know, saying bye to, it wasn't just friends, it was family, you know. We worked together 60 plus hours a week, you know, for three years for me. So yeah, it was hard.
I mean, there was Dinner by Heston was in the news through that period, as many restaurants were, and as was, you know, culturally common in restaurants that people were doing over the hours. You weren't paid for all those hours. I mean, that was a culture that I assume you were brought up in.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been a chef since I was 15. Started my apprenticeship as 15 and moved to Devon to work in a Michelin star restaurant, and did that for 3 years, and that's when I moved to London. So I'm used to it. That's what I enjoyed. That's what I thrived in, you know. So
I guess it's like it's all right if you feel like, well, I mean, not to put words into your mouth, but I've spoken to a lot of chefs, and a lot of people say, you know, you can you feel okay doing over the hours when you feel like you're learning and you're being respected, and that you're going to be basically looked after. And I just feel like you were doing your side of the bargain and they weren't.
yeah, bittersweet.
All right. Well, let's move past Valentine's Day. Not a very delightful day for you this year. And so you're thrown out of the restaurant onto your ass. And, you know, I guess middle of Feb, we knew there was a pandemic, but it hadn't really hit here. I'm sure at Crown, because of, you know, relying on so many customers from China, I'm sure business had already tanked in all the Crown restaurants. But, you know, people were still going about their lives to more or less in Melbourne. What did you think? Like, what were you thinking in the days and weeks after dinner closed?
Yeah, so going back to February, so I don't think, when did it strike us? I think it wasn't until March, I believe.
Yeah, it's the middle of March.
So obviously
Yeah.
I had, well, the end of February to, you know, find a job that would take on my visa, because that's what I found out, you know. I couldn't just work for anybody and start the week after. It had to be, they had to transfer my 457 sponsorship from dinner. And obviously trying to sort that out, there was nobody to actually talk to at dinner, because, you know, everybody was in my position, from management to HR, you know. They were all out of a job too, and they had no database to help, and then Crown was, you know, Crown. So obviously I started doing interviews at quite a few restaurants here in Melbourne, you know, because my plan was to stay here. I have my partner here, you know, this is home for me now. So, yes, going through to look for a new job, interviews with different restaurants, and, you know, it's quite hard when you go there and you say, you know, well, you need to transfer my visa for me to start. So that was always a tough topic because of the current situation, you know. Nobody had the money to spend. I think it was about $5,000 to transfer a 457. So, yeah, it was tricky. And I must have had
It's a lot for a restaurant to take on.
It is, absolutely, especially during the situation that we were all in. And that was hard because it was pretty much impossible, you know. I tried every day. I was on calls. I was going in for interviews, trying to do trials. And as good as they went, it all came down to, sorry, you know, we can't take on your visa right now. So, yeah, it was very hard.
Why would people bring you in for a trial when they already knew that there was the visa situation?
Good question. I have no idea. I guess just to see how they could help, if they could.
Okay. So that wasn't a thing. And then not long after that, restaurants closed.
During that time, I was also in the middle of applying for a partner visa. So, because I had all that free time and I really needed to focus on getting that application sent, because I did it all myself. I couldn't afford to pay for a lawyer to do it for me or an immigration agent, because that's what happened prior for my sponsorship through dinner. So yeah, just really focusing on getting that application, 10 out of 10, perfect. That took a lot of work. And that was also trying to decide, like, oh, have I got a job next week or have I not? And obviously that never happened. So
What was the situation with your relationship? Was that an easy decision, or did that put pressure on your relationship? Was it just something that you talked about together that you decided, that was the only way forward?
a bit of both, really. Like, yeah, I was lucky to meet my partner in 2019, so it's been 2 years in January coming up. If it wasn't for him, I would be in a very difficult situation right now. He's been a very, very good support, so it was very nice to have him here. And yeah, I couldn't have done this without him or without my family here either. So, but it was definitely always something that we had on the cards. We just definitely pushed it forward, just to ensure me to be able to stay here. I didn't want to go back home. Well, this is home. This is home.
Yes, absolutely.
And when the government tries to tell you, oh, we can't support you, go back home, that's that really hurt.
Yeah, I mean, that hurt me, and I wasn't even, it wasn't even about me, and it really hurt me.
I know I've only been here for 3 years, but
Well, you've been living here, you've been contributing, you've been paying taxes.
exactly. So yeah, that really hit us hard. Not just me, family and friends that have had to leave. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. But luckily I had a good network of support here and thankfully got through it. We can talk about that soon.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the other things that you did. So you put your partner visa in, and that's a lot of paperwork, isn't it? And it's quite stressful because you feel like you could be tripped up at any point with those forms.
Absolutely. And I kept getting so many messages saying, oh, don't do it yourself. You really need to go to an immigration migrant. I was like, oh, I'd love to, but I've not got another $10,000 to spend on that. The visa application itself is very expensive, and I was always worried about that, going through myself, but had to make it work. But I was always trying to do the best thing, because we was told, obviously, when dinner closed, that I would have a letter about my sponsorship being cancelled, but obviously that never happened. So I was always worried, like, what do I need to do? I always say, and there's a few of my friends that say the same, we just wish there was a place in Melbourne or around Australia where you could just go and just get some support about a visa, because there's nowhere that does that. Just some free support, like, oh, I'm on this visa, this has happened, tell me what I need to do. Because it's just such a guessing game, and it's not a cheap guessing game, because I applied for a visitor visa after I applied for the partner visa just to make myself lawful, and I just wanting to do the right thing,
So it's actually like the obligation of your employer when they cancel your employment is that they do have to write to immigration to advise them of the situation. And as far as you know, they never did that.
As far as I know, they never did that.
And what happens once they do that is that you've then got 60 days to leave the country. So you're basically you're standing on the edge of a cliff, and they're the ones that can push you over. It is. I'm sorry to go back to my outrage about your previous employment, but that is absolutely disgraceful. Where they're one of the biggest hospitality employers in the country, they're about to open another casino in Sydney. I'm so mad about this. I mean, this kind of it's such an absolute mess, and this is one of the reasons why I started trying to assist you guys, because as you say, like it is an absolute tangle. It's so opaque, and when you're stressed out, you're unemployed, you've got no money coming in, and someone else has your money that you're entitled to, and they're not giving it to you, and you can't contact them. It's an absolute disgrace.
It was very scary.
It's so bad. Aidan, I'm so outraged for you. It's so terrible. All right. Okay. Anyway, but you could. So in amongst all of this stress, and I can see it's like you apply for this visa, you apply for that visa. It's like you're clutching at straws, right? And everything's so hard to grasp. And we're in a pandemic. It's really scary. Melbourne is just like up and down and up and down. So bad. Anyway, in amongst all this, you start a beautiful, positive, delightful business that showcases your skills. So tell us about that.
Absolutely, and to be honest, this is quite a long story as well. So, well, obviously, I couldn't find a job. I've applied for the visa, so I felt like I had a little bit of security having applied for that visa. Um, my partner and I was at home during the isolation, the lockdown, and obviously being a pastry chef, started baking a few things just for me, myself, and my partner, or a few family members that wanted something. Um, and yeah, well, I live in a building that has a pretty good community. We have a WhatsApp group. One of the neighbours created this during the lockdown for, any support anybody need for elderly. If somebody's going to the market, they can get them a cabbage or some chicken. And just one day I was like, oh, I should just introduce myself, pastry chef, Michelin star, hatted, trained. Um, if you're looking for a celebration cake, because I had a lot of requests like, oh, I've got a birthday and, can't get a cake anywhere. This is just people in the building, right? And that support was amazing. After that, when I posted on the WhatsApp group and just flooded with messages like, oh my God, amazing. We would love to support you. And because I've explained about the dinner situation, just to give them a bit of background information about me. And yeah, the support was, it blew me away, to be honest. So that was just in my building to start with. Just baking a few tarts and cakes for people that had a birthday. So that was really well. And one day I got a message from this lovely lady on level 10, Nadia she's called, and she inquired about, this particular birthday cake that she needed for a friend, 70th birthday, I believe it was. Yeah, great, talk about that. And then the day I came to deliver it to her, she was, kindly asked me. It was quite a big cake as well. Oh, how do I go about portioning this? I was like, oh, I'd love to come up and do that for you, just give them that service, thinking it was upstairs in my building. Well, actually, this lady is an economist for Harold Mitchell, which, so I go over and, well, I was thinking I was going upstairs to cut this cake. They sent a chauffeur to come and pick me up, and I went and cut this birthday cake. He was on this Zoom meeting with all his friends and family, and that was surreal. But during the day, the support from Harold Mitchell has been absolutely incredible. After meeting him and, telling him my situation with what happened with Crown and etc., it's amazing. And to this day, I still working pretty much like a private chef for him, pretty much. So yes, so that's how it started in the WhatsApp group, and then from that, I applied for a license to do a cake business from home. I think I applied that in April, and that's ongoing still. I'll hopefully get it approved next week. So, but the business is called Chic Partie. That name came about from when I used to work in London. My position in London was chef de partie, which is a French term for a chef. And that's how Chic de Partie came about.
Right. And how's it been going? So you've got this support from Harold Mitchell, who, if anyone has got the Good Weekend magazine from this previous weekend, there was a big profile about him. He's an entrepreneur, media buyer. Been a big figure in Australian media and society for decades. So good person to stumble upon.
Indeed.
But yeah, so
spontaneous stumble.
Has the business been going well apart from your association with Harold Mitchell?
Yeah, absolutely. So I created an Instagram for that, and joined a few community groups on Facebook through. I live in the CBD, so a few South Bank communities and a Poms in Melbourne. Obviously, I have to get on that one. And the support's just been absolutely incredible. Blown away by the support. It's been fantastic, and it's actually, supported me during this, because otherwise I have no idea. And it wasn't the means to do this to start a business. It was more a means to do this to keep me from being depressed, give me something to do, from working 70 plus hour weeks to doing absolutely nothing. It really, that was really hard. And it's not that I was just doing that for a few years. I've been doing that for 11 years now. So from going from all of that for the routine and, the drive to service and, delivering what we used to do, to going to sitting on my sofa at home in a, apartment thinking, my God, I've got all this time in the world, but I can't do anything. That was hard.
It's really tough.
So,
Aidan, tell us about the good news that you received last week.
yeah, so obviously, just to mention about applying for the partner visa. That was in late March. And it was approved last week, so I'm very, very, very happy about that. Such a relief, When you apply for it, they tell you it's going to take up to 2 years, so I was definitely not expecting anything back till, 2022. So, but that's all gone through, and yeah, we couldn't be happier.
Congratulations.
Thank
you.
Just feels great, all that hard work put into that application, and it paid off in such short notice too, So I guess they're really fast tracking those visas, because a lot of people have left and they need skilled people now. Because the visa I had with dinner was still valid till 2022, but I didn't know if tomorrow it would be cancelled. So now I have this, it's a lot more permanent and a lot more safeguarding for me and the future here for me. So it's great. But yeah, you find out you just get an email saying, I was at Kirk's Wine Bar actually when everything reopened, and having a nice glass of wine and lunch with my partner, and I was like, oh my God. It just came through and I had goosebumps, It's so surreal.
It's so random.
Very random. Oh, but it's fantastic.
It's so crazy. Like, do you reckon that's what it is? Like, have you spoken to other people that are getting their partner visas through? And do you think it's because the Australian government's realised that telling people to go home wasn't the best idea?
Oh, I'm not sure actually. Well, I think just because so many people have left, they have to cancel whatever they've applied for if they have applied. So I guess I was just fast-tracked. That's my perspective anyway. Because, to get it, within 5 or 6 months is amazing. Because if you apply on the website, it tells you up to 24 months, which is quite the wait. But that was the wait I was expecting for. So when I got that email, I was like, oh my goodness, blown away.
So Aidan, you've got your partner visa, it's come through, you're unbound from your previous employer. That means that you could go and get a job anywhere now. Is that what you've got work rights? Is that what you're going to do?
Not at the moment, I don't think. So as I was saying, I applied for the food license to carry on with Chic, Partie, my little cake business, and that is just a home run business at the minute. Like the rest of Melbourne, most of us are all working at home, and why can't chefs work at home as well? I turned what was a spare bedroom into a pretty spectacular prep kitchen. Decked it out with a new fridge and storage for, I've worked in hospitality for a long time, I know how I like it to be, and, had my inspection a few weeks ago and that went really well, so I'm just waiting to make a payment to have the license. And now I can actually have that license because I have, this visa. Maybe I couldn't have done on my previous visa, but, there's no worth in not trying because, again, like I was saying, I had nothing, I couldn't do anything, so it was just doing my best to do what I could to survive during this crazy few months, well, half the year. Well, since February for me.
Yeah. I mean, you've had a super hard time, but it's worth pointing out that as you said, you've got a partner here, you've got family here, you speak English. I'm not diminishing what you've been going through, but you can understand that for people who don't have that support and don't have English as a first language, it's just another layer of distress and in many cases loneliness and just like greater feelings of abandonment. And people that, as you said so eloquently, it's like you're used to working super hard. To have that stripped away, it's really destabilizing, along with all the other layers of instability.
Exactly, like you said with the layers, First, finding out that the restaurant is going to close, then it closes with hardly any notice, to pretty much being on the streets with no job. You got to fight your way to find a job and beg for somebody to take on this visa that never happened. And then for COVID to strike, I was like, could this year get any worse? And, you could either be, depressed and do nothing about it, which, I was probably like that for a few days, driving my partner crazy, like, oh, can't do this anymore. What should we do? Blah, blah, blah. And then you just have that day where, you know what, I still love Melbourne. This is home. Got to fight for it. So I guess that's what I did, and never dreamed of what would happen now, starting a little business and getting that visa approved so fastly. So, there's definitely some good news to all of this bad news. But I understand what you're saying about, because obviously I have a lot of friends here as well that were in a situation where, they were lonely, you just got to reach out to whoever you can, ask how they are, That's a big question this year. How are you? But you got to ask it. It's important, And hospitality is such a, big community here. So it's really good to reach out to anybody that you know and support them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your support during all this has been incredible. I can't actually remember how I found out about you, but started to join the emails, and those, I think it was 57 emails in total, was it? That was incredible. Just to have that weekly update of news and things that's going on, and because that's what I was saying before. There's not a place where you can go and be like, oh, is there support? Like, well, what do I need to do next? What's happening? And for you to offer that was incredible, not just for me, but for thousands of us here.
Well, it's really ridiculous as you say that, Aidan. Like, I'm really happy if anything that I've done has helped, but it's actually really stupid that I'm just a food writer who just thought, oh my God, these people, someone has to do something. And it's like, it is actually really stupid that you've been brought here because of your skills. An employer has paid thousands of dollars to have you here and then abandoned you. It is really just, the fact that I did whatever I did only highlights the failings of the system. It's an absolute disgrace. And I'm really sorry that you were put in that position. I'm really glad that things have worked out for you, but it makes me super mad to think that this is what you've gone through. And now, when there are like countless restaurants in Melbourne that I'm sure would love your skills because of what you've gone through and the way you've come out the other side, you're like, nah, I'm not going back to restaurants. So Australian restaurants have lost you for now. Maybe we'll get you back, but we've lost you for now because of the journey that you were like shoved on, the road that you were shoved on unceremoniously has now meant that your skills are not available to our restaurants. And that is yet another layer of just disappointment in this whole situation. Not that I don't wish you all the best in your business and everyone should buy your cakes. They're fantastic. But there's just so much wrong with this whole picture.
There is, and hospitality is in a very difficult situation, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, I think during this isolation, you really get time to reflect and think, what do you actually want to do? Do you want to go back to doing those hours as much as I loved it, but when you can actually work for yourself? And I've, got quite a big team of support from, friends, family, and then all these new Chic to Partie followers. So yeah, it's really humbling, and I'm very proud of what I have turned out of what was a really terrible situation for me. But there's definitely positive things that outcame. But yes, no more restaurants for me for a while, I don't think. It's good to just take the time to reflect, and luckily enough I can work on this at the moment. So
yeah, well, let's finish with a little celebration of dessert and where you think things are at. If we're thinking about, what's hot in cakes and desserts, what do you reckon? Yeah, what do you reckon is happening?
That's hard to say because I do know a lot of people that are doing the little businesses too. But restaurant-wise, I still always have my favourites. And as soon as we were allowed to go back, trying to make those reservations to go and support those restaurants is the key to try and get all this back on track. I have quite a few friends in hospitality. I'm good friends with Jason Jones of Entrecote. So I try and support him, It's amazing what he's doing with the picnic, and, at least everywhere is able to reopen now as well. And just the small places, like Kirk's is one of my favourite places. That's where I was when I got the good news about the visa. So
Yes,
But
that'll
cakes,
always be a special place for you.
yes.
But what about if what types of cakes are people loving? What kind of flavors? Where do you think things are at?
Well, the way I've tried to structure my little business at the moment, I was just taking requests to begin with, Well, being a pastry chef for 11 years, I've covered pretty much everything. Not that there's always ways to learn and improve, and new techniques. But I've just put what I've learned over the past few years into what I'm doing now, and I kind of offer quite a wide range of products, from celebration cakes to tarts to macarons to Portuguese tarts. Not everybody wants to. Well, not everybody has a celebration every week, so I try and offer something that's relatable for a picnic or for a walk. Just a small box of Portuguese tarts, just trying to get out there and spread what I've learned, and hopefully people are enjoying that.
Fantastic. Well, now I just really want a Portuguese tart, so I'm going to have to sort that situation out soon. Aidan, thank you so much for coming along to have a chat to Dirty Linen during our staffing week. I'm very sorry you've been through the staffing ringer, but I really hope you have a great summer, that things start looking up for you, or continue to look up for you as we go forward into summer. Thank you so much for having a chat today.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Dani, for your time. Much appreciated. And anybody out there that needs any support, then I'm on Instagram. Message me.
Yeah.
Love to meet anybody. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about. We spend a week thrashing around each issue, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.